Hello, and welcome to episode number 196 of the Lions Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by Brad Allen, Stephen Andress. We go through every single one of the games. And guys, I cannot believe it's week 16. This is depression is starting to set in here. I don't like this one bit. I don't like that the NFL season is coming to a close. If you want to follow Brad on Twitter at Brad Allen NFL, you want to follow Stephen at Stephen Andress1, you want to follow me at Matt Brown M2. Guys, it was a very wacky week 15. Hopefully there'll be at least a little bit more in week 16 that we can correctly predict. It was this whole COVID situation is super fluid, and we are going to try to navigate it the very best that we can. But listen, new guys are popping on and off every single day. How the testing, and that's the other thing about this, is we don't know the new testing regimen, how easy it will be for guys to get off the list and test off the list and all that. So again, we'll do our best to kind of give you the landscape of all of this, but just know, as always, just be sure and check the news before you smash that button on your bet. Let's head to Saturday here. Cleveland Browns and the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers are 7.5-point home favorites in this one. 45.5 to 46 is your total. You got the Browns, who are one of the teams that were absolutely devastated by the COVID outbreak. Moved their game, didn't matter, weren't able to get back either one of their quarterbacks, had to go with Nick Mullins, ended up fighting in that game, but ended up losing regardless. And with that, pretty much lost out on their chances at the playoffs. Green Bay Packers, due to a couple of key losses in the NFC, now find themselves as the number one seed in the NFC. Stephen, I'll start with you because you have a bet in this one. And it's might be a little shocking to some people because you're on the Browns.
Yeah, let me preface this by saying I do think the Packers are one of the three best teams in the league. The look ahead line here was Packers -6.5. So I think you can make the argument that the Packers are a good teaser leg here. I certainly think in most cases they're going to win this game, but I also think that the line is inflated right now off of the Cleveland COVID stuff and a lot of games for Cleveland where they've just been missing players in general. So it's kind of hard to look at season-long numbers for Cleveland and figure out what they are exactly because there's been so many games where they've been missing pieces. But this line to me is kind of anticipating potentially some one-way action here because if they get guys back, this line only comes down, in my opinion. I don't think that this 7.5 line is going to get much higher if they don't get good COVID news. And I'm basing that on what some of these Packers closing lines have been earlier this season. They were only 8 against the Washington football team. So you're telling me if Cleveland's healthy that they're basically the same as the Washington football team. I don't agree with that. And the Packers were only 3 against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. And if you factor in home field, they were 5.5 against Minnesota. So I think Cleveland's more in line with Seattle and Minnesota than I do the Washington football team if they're healthy and on the field. So I do acknowledge, though, that we need healthy Cleveland news at this point. They're still missing a lot of guys, and not just with the COVID situation, including their quarterbacks, but now they have Myles Garrett, Malik Jackson, and John Johnson, who are both back-to-back DNPs on the injury report. At full strength, we know this is a pretty darn good Cleveland defense. They're top 5. On offense, I think we've seen a handful of games here when they're fully healthy, where they're at least an average, maybe slightly above average. The offensive line could dominate here. Number 1 in pass block win rate, number 28 pass rush win rate for the Packers. And also number 5 rush DVOA offense versus the number 25 rush DVOA defense for the Packers. So I am taking a chance here, trying to get the best number. Hopefully we get some good injury and COVID news for the Browns. But with the way betting is these days, I still think I'm going to be able to cash this out for a full stake, even if the injury report doesn't go our way on Friday or maybe even Saturday here.
On the Brown side of things, Tack McKinley, ruptured Achilles. He is out for the season. Kevin Stefanski, Austin Hooper were activated from the COVID list, so at least those guys going to be back out there. Kareem Hunt is going to miss week 16. He's on the COVID list as is anyway, but that ankle injury would have kept him out of the game. As it is, So it doesn't really matter whether it was the COVID or whatever with him. He was going to miss regardless. On the Green Bay side of things, I think the real big news here is that David Bakhtiari, who they were expecting to be able to come back mid-season, but then he had to have a little bit of an extra procedure done on that knee of his, doesn't look like he's going to be back yet again. I would be surprised at this point if they played him at all and maybe just tried to get him ready for the playoffs. But again, that's just me speculating here. Brad, look, how they continue to get it done week in, week out is beyond me. The Packers, I mean, Devontae Adams had a bad game this past week and they still won again against the Ravens. I mean, like I thought for sure we were going to get the average game out of Devontae Adams, and this was when the Packers were finally going to lose a game, and that was just not the case. Did you see how they were
covering them? Did you see that? They had not only the corner pressing, they had another safety intermediate, and then a third guy deep lined up straight in a line in front of Devontae Adams. It was incredible.
I mean, Devontae Adams in a game with only 7 targets is like, how do they win the game? Well, they figured out a way to win the game as it is anyway. Is 7.5 too much here in your opinion, though?
Well, I mean, they had a specific game plan for them. I can't remember. It was called 17 or something, just to take him out of the game. But I mean, that just left one-on-one coverage for everyone else, and Valdez-Scantling went a bit nuts, didn't he? So, you can take him out. You can take Adams out if you triple team him, but you're going to get cooked elsewhere. 7.5, I really don't have a strong view here. I mean, Myles Garrett is huge. I think if he's out, then the Browns are in real trouble, especially with that Takk McKinley injury as well. Suddenly, the strength of the team, the D-line, is suddenly gone, essentially, against Aaron Rodgers, who gets rid of it so quick, who's got good protection anyway. So I think you have to make sure Clowney's in before you bet anything. The other side, the Packers' defense is fallen off quite dramatically. Just looking through the game log here, they've given up 30 to the Ravens, 30 to the Bears, 28 to the Rams, and 34 to the Vikings over their last 4. So about 30 points a game. So, can the Browns take advantage of that? Like, if it's Baker, he's probably still got that torn labrum. He's pretty bad. So I don't know. Yeah, it was a no bet for me as it stands, but I'll watch Clowney closely. Not Clowney, Garrett.
Yeah, Steven mentioned a way to play this, and that's the teaser leg this week. I have a full-on Saturday teaser, and it had nothing to do with just wanting to get it home on Saturday. It had everything to do with the fact that I just like both legs of the teasers on Saturday. Getting Green Bay down to 1.5 points here. Here's the other thing about this whole COVID situation, guys, and this is one thing that I don't think a lot of people have been mentioning, is even if you get players back, right, the nature of the way that the protocol is, these guys have not been able to practice the whole time that they've been out with all of this. They're not been allowed in the building. They've not been allowed any of that. You can't do any of this stuff as long as you're on the protocol, whenever you're on the list. And so it's different for a guy like Aaron Rodgers to get activated and go out there and just do Aaron Rodgers things at the quarterback position than it is for all these other guys, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, who are like running new schemes, who, like you were talking about last week, they ran a completely different defense just to try to neutralize Devontae Adams. I mean, like you're not out there on the practice field being able to get this stuff done and work through these things and actually put that stuff into reality. And so I actually think the Packers could run away with this thing here, but I'll go ahead and play it safe and take the teaser leg side of it, get it down to 1.5 and pair it up with the other game on Saturday as well. Speaking of the other game on Saturday, let's take a look at the Indianapolis Colts at the Arizona Cardinals. As we sit right now, the Cardinals are anywhere from a 1 point to a 1.5 point home favorite. This is down from 2.5. A lot of people taking the Colts whenever that thing was at 2.5, taking it when it was at 2 as well. Now sitting 1.5 everywhere, 48.5 to 49. Your total. Brad, when we take a look here, the Colts have been getting it done with a power run game. It has been Jonathan Taylor. They haven't had to really do anything with Carson Wentz. That's probably a pretty good thing because Carson Wentz is terrible. If you look at the Arizona Cardinals, they're on this losing streak here. They're without DeAndre Hopkins. They're still without J.J. Watt. This defense can't stop the run at all. They can't get off the field on third down. They get bullied by a Lions team this past week. People say, hey, it's just one game, don't overreact, but it's not really just one game. Like, we've seen this Cardinals team kind of leak oil throughout the course of the season, and I think now it's just kind of all coming to a head here at the worst possible time. I took the Colts in a teaser with the Packers. I took the Colts up to 8. It was at 2 at the time when I took it. You can still find a 1.5 out there to take it up to 7.5, to take it through the 3 and the 8. The other thing is just the way that the Cardinals have been playing offense right now, and the guys that they're going to have available and all that, like, they're not really built to blow anybody out, the way that they've been playing either. So gladly take 8 points or 7.5 points with the Colts as it is. I guess my question to you is, do you think that this offensive philosophy from the Colts, this run, only pass whenever we have to with Carson Wentz, can work against this Cardinals team?
Yeah, 100%. So one of the things we've been talking a little bit about this season is the teams built to run, to combat the teams built to stop the pass. And Arizona's defense is built to stop the pass. So they're 25th in run stop win rate. They're 25th in PFF rush defense grade. And now they're going up against the best rush defense in the NFL, the best run blocking O-line in the NFL. And we saw them literally get crushed by Detroit's O-line, and the Colts O-line is a different league. If you beat the Patriots up front on both lines of scrimmage, like the Colts did, then I'm taking you very seriously. And Arizona's in a completely different league defensively. They're not stout up front. Since JJ Watt's gone down, they went from one of the top defenses in the NFL to 18th in EPA per play allowed. So they're mid-pack. Then they've lost Robert Alford. They're one of their top 2 corners. So now they're starting one of the very worst corners by PFF grade in the NFL opposite Byron Murphy. So they can't stop the run. I think they probably can't stop the pass. I don't really know what they're going to do. So we look at the Arizona offense. Can they keep up? Well, obviously they've lost Hopkins. Kyler, he didn't run at all last week. Is he still feeling that calf injury? I don't know. And then so if we look at Cliff Kingsbury's splits in the second half of the season, is he a bit of a Sean McVay where he gets worse? Because his splits with Kyler Murray, first half of the year, they're plus 3.9 points per game in point differential. Second half of the year, minus 3 points per game. So 6.9 points different. Without DeAndre Hopkins, they suddenly get a lot worse as well. Yards per attempt drops by 1.7 yards per attempt with Hopkins off the field. So look, it feels quite square, doesn't it? Like, Arizona just got beaten by the Lions, now back at home against the Colts team off a huge statement win. But I think you can only go on the Colts side here, because I think up front they're going to smash this Cardinals defense. So for me, the way to play it is Colts first half. You can get plus a half, minus 120 I've seen, or you can get just pick them, basically draw no bet, evens, just the Colts to win the first half. And that's the way I like to play it.
Stephen, I know you're looking on the other side of this one. I'm curious as to where you think that the kind of this Colts offense falters here against this Arizona defense. I mean, I'm not bullish on the Colts long term. I think that it will eventually falter in the playoffs. I can't wait to fade them in the playoffs. They've got a quarterback that they want to hide very, 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 very much. And if it came down to it in the playoffs and somebody had to make a big throw, Carson Wentz is not going to make that big throw. But I think this is a really, really, really good matchup for this team here. I think this is a perfect storm of the Colts kind of hitting their stride, Arizona stumbling, and then a huge, huge, huge strength against a huge weakness in two teams kind of colliding here.
Well, Brad just made a very compelling case for the Colts, and now I'm terrified. So let's start there. But I agree with you. One of the things I was going to mention, even though I am thinking about betting the Cardinals here, one of the 2 big questions I asked myself in this game, can Arizona slow down Jonathan Taylor, is one of them. And admittedly, probably not. Brad laid that out perfectly. Earlier this season, Arizona's run D looked better, but it's gotten worse. The PFF grades have Arizona.
JJ Watt went down, right? I mean, JJ Watt was by far their best run defender, and then when he went down, it fell off a cliff for them. Yeah,
and now if you look at grades, they're number 25 by PFF against the run, which happens to also be their rank in overall run stop win rate this season. So they're going to be able to run the ball. The question I have to ask myself, considering that this game is now a pick'em, and I'm not being tasked with trying to figure out if Arizona could win by more than a field goal, which is what the look ahead was. Can they just win the game with Kyler against this Colts passing defense? And Indianapolis is 30th in pressure rate, 24th in pass rush win rate. They are bottom half in early down success rate in EPA. They are 28th in red zone defense. So at least on paper, it looks like a pretty good bounce back spot for Kyler in this offense. And to Brad's point, he didn't run last week. The question about the calf, he did rush for 61 yards on 7 attempts the week before against the Rams. So not too concerned there. The loss of DeAndre Hopkins obviously is significant, but he was not getting the huge major usage and efficiency that we've seen in previous years with Hopkins. So I care a little bit more about James Conner and Chase Edmonds being a really strong, efficient check down option if the guys aren't open down the field. So, I mean, it's really just one of those typical bounce back situations on paper, right? Are you getting a buy low spot here for Arizona, or is this just what they are at this point? So this, you guys know I've been high on Arizona all year. I think people have been trying to shoot holes into them when they weren't there earlier this year. I think those holes might be there now. So I guess this is my last stand for Arizona this week against the very strong and capable Indianapolis Colts squad. I am going to take the -1 on Arizona, I think, though, and hope that they bounce back.
Matt and Brad versus Steven. This typically doesn't go well for Steven. So we shall see how this we'll see how this plays out on Saturday. But two really good games on Saturday that mean a lot because again, Green Bay still trying to hold on to that number 1 seed, and then you've got Indianapolis and Arizona, who one trying to stop the bleeding, one trying to continue to improve where they sit in the playoffs. On to Sunday, let's take a look at the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals. This game, you want to talk about a game that have implications? This game has implications. You have a Ravens and a Bengals team that this game is not only so incredibly important in their division, but both still have an outside shot at the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. That is how jumbled the AFC is sitting right now. This has moved to 3 at all of the books in favor of the Bengals. This was at 2.5. Cincinnati money came in 45.5. Your total, guys. I know this is going to be a shocker. I am on Cincinnati. I took the 2.5. If we look at last week,
I am absolutely stunned that you're on the Bengals, Matt.
I know. I'm listen. I was on them last week. We won. We're going to be on them this week. We're going to win again. And here's the thing. We talked about this on the podcast, guys. Like, if there was a team that there could be at least a little bit of a struggle against for this Cincinnati offense, it would have been Denver, right? I mean, the one strength that Denver has and the one thing that they bring to the table is a really strong secondary. They almost have too many guys in the secondary. That's how many guys that they have that are actually pretty good that play in the secondary. That is the complete and utter opposite case here for the Ravens. This Ravens team is completely depleted in the secondary. They're just putting warm bodies out there at this point. Now, if this was the Ravens team in July, I would say, oh, this is a very, very bad matchup for Joe Burrow and company. It is not the Ravens in July. It is the Ravens in December, and the Ravens in December have all of their stars in the secondary on the sideline, on IR, not being out there. And so now you try and tell me where this team coming in with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins and CJ Uzomah and Joe Mixon are not going to be able to move the ball up and down the field on this Ravens team. By the way, this Ravens team that loves to blitz a ton. And when you blitz, what does that do? You have fewer guys out there covering people. So now you're going to leave Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins in 1-on-1 type situations with Joe Burrow, who's been one of the best quarterbacks in 2021 against the blitz as well. I think this could be a run out in this one, guys. I don't care if Lamar plays or not. I actually think it's probably better for my bet if Lamar plays, because you're going to get a hobbled Lamar. And if Lamar is not Lamar and Lamar's got to be a pocket passer, then by all means, bring that on for me as a Cincinnati backer in this game. I've talked a lot here, Brad. So you take over, my friend. Tell me why I'm on the wrong side of this thing.
And then I'd say the other key thing is another thing we talked about a lot on this podcast is people getting used to the backup quarterbacks, right? They come in, they have a game or two where they play well because no one knows what they're going to do. And then once the league has tape, they adjust. So Huntley, he's come in, but he's put an entire game on tape now. And watching that game back, the Packers played weird. They played weirdly. Well, I mean, one, they tried to cover Mark Andrews with Darnell Savage, which was terrible for them. They were playing very soft the entire time. Just giving up like 6 yards a pass without Huntley really doing anything beyond his first read. So I think the Bengals can make that a lot tougher. The Ravens O-line is still bad. It's still a question for me. So yeah, I like the 2.5 as well.
Steven, we have we're 2 for 2 here on the side of Cincinnati. Where are you looking at in this one?
I haven't bet it yet. The Ravens are in a pretty rough shape here with COVID as well, by the way. They have 11 on the COVID list, including a ton of key defensive players and rotational players on defense. And that's already with having 12 players on season-ending IR at this point. So they're running out of bodies on defense. If they get them back, it's interesting, perhaps. I mean, I'm with the Ravens getting maybe more than a field goal here if this line keeps moving the way it is. Matt, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. If the Ravens converted those 2-point conversions over the past couple of weeks instead of not convert them and they lose those and they lost those games, what's this line if the Ravens convert those 2-point conversions and win those games and beat the Packers and beat the Steelers as opposed to where they are now? I mean, are we looking at a +3 here if that happens?
Probably not. It probably would have been 1.5 in favor of Cincinnati, something like that. And so, there might be a little bit of this built in. But I'm not so much worried about that, right? I mean, I got it under the 3. I feel confident at it under the 3.
You love the Bengals, so you don't care. It's a benefit to you, right?
And if you're under, I think even at the 3, I think that this is still a good price. Like I said, if you want to talk about matchups, last week was a bad on paper matchup for what Cincinnati wants to do as an offensive football team. This is a dream on paper matchup for what they want to do as an offensive football team. And so
my concern, Matt, is Zach Taylor being a bonehead, though, because
that is always that's always in play. That guy.
They keep talking in Cincinnati about this establish the run garbage, and I was actually hoping that Joe Mixon wouldn't play in this game, so it would force them to throw it more than they have been in recent weeks. I really wish they would just take the training wheels off the offense and let Joe Burrow be Joe Burrow. I think we'd see the ceiling for this Bengals offense, kind of like we did in the first matchup between these two teams. So hopefully it's a repeat of what we saw. I'll say this: if the Ravens get all those guys back, and there's some significant guys there, including Justin Houston. Warren Sharp tweeted this earlier this week, and I hate trends, but I think this one speaks to coaching. Both of these coaches are undefeated against the spread when facing an opponent for the second time in a season. Harbaugh's sample is obviously larger. He's 8-0 against the spread, and many of those have actually been as a favorite, obviously, because they've been a really strong team in recent years. Zach Taylor's done it as an underdog most of the time, so now Harbaugh's in that underdog situation. If he has the bodies, he's the guy that's going to make these adjustments to try and figure out how to stop Cincy. If they don't have the bodies, it's not going to matter. I agree with you there. But, I mean, who's more likely to make adjustments here when the game was a 40-point blowout the first time? I don't think Cincinnati's going to make many adjustments. So I don't know. I don't have a good read on this game, but I certainly can't poke too many holes. I'm trying to poke holes into your arguments, but I'm talking about fucking trends at this point. So I mean, it seems pretty clear on paper that Cincy's in a good spot.
Brad, I'm going to end this game with this. Do you know? And I think probably you do, because I'm asking this question. Do you know who the number 1 graded passer in all of the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus? The number 1 graded quarterback in all of the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, is?
Second half last week, I think they ran it on 9 out of 10 first down plays, and the one time they threw it, they scored a touchdown. That touchdown.
Come on, Zach Taylor.
So you do have to worry, because he's got the shackles on him.
Joe Jesus H. Burrow, your number 1 graded quarterback in all of the NFL, above Tom Brady, above Aaron Rodgers. Joe Burrow, your number 1 graded quarterback in the NFL. Los Angeles Rams at the Minnesota Vikings. The Rams, 2.5 to 3-point road favorites over the Vikings. 49.5 is the total here. Steven, when we look at this Vikings team, boy, at least they're consistent, right? They get up. They can't hold a lead. They let the other team come back. They threaten to lose the game. And I mean, it's rinse and repeat every single week. It's like they're going to get up double digits in a game. They're going to blow the double digit lead. They might blow the whole game. It's like the exact same formula every single game. in come the Rams. Of course, the Rams now in a super, super good spot to not only try and steal the West, but to steal the NFC in general here over the last 3 weeks of the season. They find themselves as short road favorites here over the Vikings, 49.5 the total.
We have an NFL playoff picture post up at thelines.com right now, just breaking everything down in each conference and looking at futures and whatnot. And if you go there, you'll see that the Vikings are now up against the wall. They do currently hold the 7th and final spot in the NFC at 7-7, but they got games against the Rams and on the road against the Packers the next couple of weeks. So which Minnesota Vikings team is going to show up from this consistently inconsistent squad? Because frankly, it was this week, right? It was, what the hell day was that game?
Monday night.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
It's all running together now, Brad. I think it is for all of us. 3.2 yards per play in Chicago. If the Bears did anything in the red zone, Minnesota probably loses that game. Chicago was 1 for 5 in the red zone in that game. So they have weeks like that. They have weeks like when they lost to the Lions. And then they have weeks where they look pretty darn good against Green Bay and Pittsburgh and score a ton of points. So I don't understand where the market's coming from with the money coming in on Minnesota to move this line off the 3, and now it's 2.5. We're getting Rams minus 2.5 here, I think, in one spot as we record this on Thursday. The only angle that makes sense to me that I can think of is that the Rams played on Tuesday and the Vikings played on Monday, which is just a weird spot. It's a shorter week than usual. Other than that, I don't get it, because the Rams, since the bye week, are top 5 in EPA and success rate. Over that same span, the Vikings defense is 16th and 25th. Vikings defense 22nd and 28th in drop back EPA and success rate over that span. This is a defense that relies on a top 10 pressure rate, but the Rams are number 2 in pressure allowed and pass block win rate. So with the receiver, Jalen Ramsey's going to cover Justin Jefferson. Who the hell is going to cover Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham? So unless rest is this big of a factor to you, or the spot with the Rams now desperate and their backs against the wall, I think that it's a discount to get the Rams under a field goal here. I don't know what you guys think.
If we look at this, Alexander Mattison was activated off the COVID list, so he'll be back this week to give them kind of a 1-2 punch with Dalvin Cook there. Adam Thielen did practice on Wednesday. He tried to go last week and just wasn't able to get it done in pregame warmup. So imagine it looks like he's trending towards playing this week. Brad, I think maybe some of this has to do with the fact that the Rams did play on an island game and looked pretty pedestrian this past week. And maybe the market is reflecting that just a little bit. The Rams, maybe one of the more confusing teams in the NFL. They go out and look like world beaters one week, then they struggle the next. They look like world beaters the next week. They struggle the next. This past week, I do understand division opponent and all this, but it
on
was
a Tuesday with a bunch of COVID crap going on. So like I throw that out. I throw that game out.
But if there was any team that did benefit from the postponements, it was the Rams for sure. I mean, they got back guys. I mean, they were one of the team. Everybody else didn't benefit at all from the postponements, but they did. They got guys back and everything, and their dudes were out there. I mean, Aaron Donald was out there, and Von Miller was out there, and Jalen Ramsey was out there, Cooper Kupp was out there, Odell, Stafford. I mean, like, they weren't playing hamstrung. This past week, like a lot of these other teams that were dealing with COVID issues. So, do you chalk that performance up, Brad, just to it's a divisional game and divisional games are weird sometimes, or is this Rams team just still really, really inconsistent in your mind?
It looked to me like they got bullied a little bit up front, but they were without the right tackle, Havenstein. He'll be back this week, I believe, off the COVID list. I think they were without the centre as well, which could be a problem. But there is also this Sean McVay getting worse in the second half of the season, and it's kind of happened again. So, last 4 games, Rams are 12th in EPA, while the Vikings are up at 9th, and the Vikings have a better success rate offensively as well. So, you've arguably got the better offense at home getting 3 points here with more rest, which, I think that's probably what the market is looking at here. I've not bet it. I would say one thing that really concerns me is, we all watched that Bears-Vikings game, and we probably saw Akeem Hicks absolutely dominate the right guard. What's his name? Something Coles. I've forgotten.
Not all that
something Coles.
Whatever.
It was walking in backwards with Mason Coles. That's it. It was walking in backwards with one hand and, making the tackle with Dalvin Cook in the other. And so he missed practice as well this week. So you've either got him or his backup versus Aaron Donald, which, that could be a game killer, essentially, if he's getting a couple of sacks up the middle. So that's why I've not pulled the trigger. I would also look at the under. As I say, I don't think the Rams offense is perhaps as good as sort of it is seen to be in the market. 49.5 points is a lot here. And especially if we think Aaron Donald is wrecking the Minnesota offense as well. That it could lean me towards an under.
Yeah, I haven't pulled the trigger on this one yet either. I do lean to the Rams, but I do just I need to dig into this one maybe for a third time, because every time I'm like, I'll take the under a field goal with the Rams here. I don't care if it is on the road against this Vikings team that can't seem to get it done in these big games, but maybe I'm missing something. So a pretty good
or maybe the line's
Rams,
right. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe the line's right, and that's why they're having a hard time seeing a big edge on both sides.
Buffalo Bills on the road at the New England Patriots. This is another massive, massive game. Look, we'll get to some stinkers later, but this is another massive game here. As we sit right now, the Patriots are 2.5 point home favorites, total of 43.5 across the board right now. So we have the Patriots coming off of a big loss to the Colts this past week. We have the Bills, who, look, the Bills do what the Bills do. The Bills smash bad teams. If you look over the course of the season, the Bills go out against bad teams and they just absolutely destroy them. And so here we go. I'm not going to say for all the marbles, but this game goes a long, 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 long way as to seeding, as to where these teams may or may not end up in the grand scheme of the playoff picture. So I'm throwing out the first game completely altogether. I know you could at least draw the conclusion that, oh, well, you know what? The Patriots can just run all day long on the Bills if they want to. Again, the Bills knew it was coming and they still couldn't stop it. I think that's at least a fair argument. I also think that NFL teams are able to make adjustments. They're NFL players, and I think that the Bills will have made some adjustments here whenever they meet the New England Patriots this week. Brad, the only thing is about this game, if you look at the weather report, and it is a little early in the week, but it does look like this game might have wind again. So we might not see the exact same thing that we saw the first time around, but we might have another wind game here.
Yes, I would say the last I saw it was about 15 miles an hour, right? Let me just check that.
That's about what I saw too, yeah.
I see. The one I'm looking at now says down to 8 miles an hour on average. So that's almost no impact.
Yeah, that's great.
So I can't shake the feeling that the Patriots are built to beat the Bills.
Yes.
Right? They're built to run the ball against a relatively light defense, and then they're built to confuse Josh Allen. Because like that great game Allen played against the Bucs, they were blitzing the entire game, whereas the playbook for how to slow down the Bills this season is sit in a cover 2 shell like a lot of teams are doing and make him beat you 10 times. And the Bucs didn't do that. The Patriots didn't really need to do that the first time around because of that wind. But I suspect that will be the game plan, and the Bills haven't really shown they can beat that, and they haven't really shown they can stop a big, powerful team running on them like the Colts, like the Patriots did. So I don't think it's a big edge at all. I think probably -2.5 is probably a fair line, maybe -2.75. But I would lean to the Patriots. I mean, the last thing is the receivers are banged up here on both sides. No Cole Beasley for the Bills. Possibly no Kendrick Bourne for the Patriots. Possibly no Aguilar as well. So we might see a lot of running.
Yeah, Aguilar dealing with a concussion, so him trying to get out of the concussion protocol. We know for sure Beasley won't play. He is unvaccinated, so with him testing positive, he is going to be out. Now, Emmanuel Sanders might be back. Don't really think that moves the needle for you one way or the other, but Emmanuel Sanders might be back in there. Gabe Davis has really kind of taken over as legit. As that number 2 guy there for them, as it is anyway. Stephen, I did play this in a teaser. Like I mentioned, I love that Packers game earlier in the week. If you're watching this, I love that game. So I went ahead and paired that up with this Bills team to getting this up to 8.5. I don't see this Patriots team constructed as they are currently, with the players we know that are going to be out there, being able to really beat anybody by double digits at this point in time. I mean, it is a power running team with a limited look. He has had a good rookie season, and he's a rookie. Not every rookie is going to be Herbert and Burrow from last year. That's just not going to be the way it is. So he has a limited amount of skill set stuff that he does. They don't ask him to do too much there for this Patriots team. And so you're going to give me 8.5 points here with this one. I understand what happened in the first game. They might run it down their throats. I think the Bills have more success through the air. They score more in this one. I can't see this one getting out of hand. So I'll take the 8.5 in a game that's only totaled at 43.5.
Yeah. In the context of a teaser leg, it makes total sense, right? It is the patented teaser leg that you want. A low total, you're getting up through the 3 and the 7. For me personally, I just like the other side more in a straight up bet as opposed to having to get 2 legs to cash it. So wouldn't shock me in the least if it falls in between there and we both win our bets. I bet New England -2 on the look ahead. Nothing has changed my mind with the handicap of this game going into that win game from before, even though I am throwing out that win game in terms of what the Buffalo offense could do. But Buffalo can't stop the run. I mean, Brad laid that out perfectly. They are not built for it. You can make adjustments all you want. They knew they were running the ball every single play of that win game, and they still were able to do enough to win the game, with the exception of 3 passes from Mac Jones. And what have they done since then? They gave up 5 yards a carry plus the Leonard Fournette. And even last week against Carolina, they gave up 5 yards per carry. So Jonathan Taylor crushed him a couple of weeks before that too. I just think the Patriots have a top 5 or a top 3 defense as well on the other side of the ball. And I know there's been a lot of talk out in sports gambling, Twitter and social media and the talking heads on TV that they're saying the Patriots have faced a soft schedule of quarterbacks. Well, the same can be said about the Bills' defensive metrics as well. So if that's what you believe, then maybe the over is what you should play in this game with a total that's sitting below 45. We're sitting at 43.5 as we record this on Thursday. So the over might actually be, there's all kinds of angles I like in this game. But if you're asking me to pick a side, I'm still going to stick with the Patriots in this one, even though the Bills are going to be able to throw the ball a little bit more in what should be an easier wind situation. I'm just not crowning Josh Allen at this point after a couple of weeks of looking better throwing the ball on paper. But if you dig in, still just 5.7 yards per attempt against the Bucs secondary. He needed 100 yards rushing to get that game to OT. 6.2 yards per attempt and less than 50% completion percentage against Carolina, less than 55% completion percentage. So this still isn't the elite Josh Allen that we saw last year and in that game against the Chiefs when the Chiefs had the worst defense in the league. And the last big piece I'm going to mention here that we need to monitor is, yes, it's just Cole Beasley right now, but we don't know for a fact that there won't be more positive tests. If there's one, there can be more. So if you want to back Buffalo, I would strongly recommend that you wait just to make sure that there aren't more COVID positives, because they also have their starting guard, Joe Feliciano, on the COVID list, who tweeted that he had to go to the emergency room to get COVID treatment this past weekend. And Deion Dawkins, their starting tackle, was in the hospital too this summer. He's back on the COVID list again. So that O-line is in rough shape right now as well against a very strong Patriots defense.
I do like the overlook in this one. I think people maybe are a little bit jaded from that first matchup, and maybe this is a little bit getting a little bit. I mean, again, if this is normal conditions, these teams should be able to score on each other as well. So I kind of do like an overlook there in this one. Los Angeles Chargers and the Houston Texans. Told you we'd get to a stinker. Chargers are 9.5 to 10-point road favorites here over the Texans. The Chargers going out there, Corey Linsley on the COVID list, Joey Bosa on the COVID list, Austin Eckler on the COVID list, Jalen Guyton on the COVID list. So who they're going to have out there, who has any idea? Nobody knows who's actually going to be able to play. We know for sure Bosa's not. He's unvaccinated, so he can't play. He's going to be out for sure in that one. And then you look on the Texan side of things, the only player they have above replacement level, Brandon Cooks, is on the COVID list. So if you want to play this game, you want to bet this game, more power to you. Steven, I'm not playing this one. I'm not betting this one. I might not even watch this one. If you have an angle, go ahead. But go ahead.
Nah, no bet for me on this one this week. I do have my eye on Houston plus 15 at San Francisco next week. I'm not going to bet it on the look ahead with all this COVID stuff going on. If the Texans get COVID, like they go from bad to awful, maybe like CFL level roster. But I do want to at least note that Davis Mills has kind of turned a corner here in the past couple of weeks. He was 18th in drop back EPA, 11th in success rate. It's a far cry from when we were talking about this offense being dead last by a wide margin earlier this season. So maybe they can at least be competitive and cover some of these more than 2 touchdown spreads in future weeks. But nothing for me here this week.
Brad, yeah, as I mentioned, Brandon Cooks and then Kai Fairbairn as well. So the only 2 players that have a pulse for this team are on the COVID list for Houston. So more power to you if you want to back them.
Yeah, I got none.
I love it.
Good.
Perfect.
Good. We move on. Games that actually matter here. Tampa Bay Bucs and the Carolina Panthers. Bucs are 10-point road favorites. There's a 10.5 still available. 44 is your total. We know Bucs are going to be out there as a shell of their former self. No Chris Godwin for the rest of the season. He is out with an ACL injury. No Leonard Fournette for the rest of the regular season as he has been placed on IR with his injury. Mike Evans is week to week. So now here we are with a completely new look Bucs team. That said, they do get back Antonio Brown this week. Carolina Panthers, been absolutely horrible. Huge disappointment. They are going to start with Cam Newton. They said that Sam Darnold will play. What that means, I have no idea. Brad,
it ain't good.
That said, is double digits too much? As bad as the Panthers have looked, is double digits too much here with what we know the Bucs are going to be rolling out with this week?
Maybe. Again, not a game I have a strong view on.
Mm-hmm.
I would be tempted to look at the under because you've got this Bucs D-line against the Panthers O-line, which is bottom 3 in the NFL. So again, I'm not sure that the Panthers are really going up and down the field. And then you do have, a fair bit of turnover on the offensive side. It looks like the weapons are going to be sort of Gronk, Brown, who obviously he's missed a few weeks, so maybe he's not a full go. And then, third option is going to be Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller. It didn't really work last week very well. And it is a complicated offense. You remember when Brady came in there, they took, the first 8 weeks of the season to really get adjusted and get on the same page. So I would be tempted to look for the under. But then, the Panthers are losing corners by the week. AJ Bouye on the IR this week. So, yeah, it's not a game I'm involved with.
Steven, it's double digits. I understand. It is a horrible Panthers team. But can they keep this thing within 10 points? Even with whatever playing time Sam Darnold is going to get?
I'd look at the other side or pass here. I'd look at Bucs or pass. I mean, this has come down from, I think, 11 on the look ahead with these Bucs injuries. And let's kind of break this down, who they lost, right? They lost Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, which is significant. But Antonio Brown, I would argue, was maybe their number 1 receiver in the games he played this year. He was getting 8+ targets in 3 of the 5 games he played. He had 11+ targets in 2 of those games. 90+ yards and a touchdown in 3 of the 5 games he's played for the Bucs this year. So he was not just a component of this offense. He was featured for Tom Brady. So I could see him stepping into this Chris Godwin role and especially against the Panthers doing quite well. Ronald Jones replaces Leonard Fournette. How quickly we forget when Rojo was healthy last year, he was balling. Like, he was doing great for the Bucs offense last year.
He ain't the pass catcher Lenny is, though.
He's not.
He ain't the pass catcher Lenny is, and Lenny had become the safety valve there for Brady. Like, he was his dump off guy.
But do they need it against the Panthers? Like, do they need it against the Panthers this week, right? I mean, that's the other question. And Brad hit on the big matchup, I think, that matters to me most is that offensive line for Carolina. It's bottom 2 in pressure allowed against the number 3 pressure rate. So the danger here is backing a big spread like that. And I don't think the Bucs are really trying to be impressive at this point. I think they're just trying to get to the playoffs healthy. I don't think they care or even can get the 1 seed at this point. So I could see a situation where they're up like 14, 15 points and give up a late garbage time touchdown or something. So I don't have an interest in backing it, but it would be Bucs or pass for me. And one more note, how fun last week was when Zane Gonzalez, their kicker for Carolina, got hurt. If you guys aren't in the Discord, Chad, for the lines right now, go to thelines.com, hit that Discord button in the top right corner. We were having fun talking about Zane Gonzalez getting a little banged up pregame, and we were hitting some kicking props at like 3-1 odds last week once we realized that happened. So if you're not in that Discord chat, we're hitting some stuff before the games even start and some inefficiencies in the market after inactives come out for these teams.
I actually think I would play the Panthers if I had to play this game. As horrible as they've looked, the 10 is too much for me here against this shell of an offense that the Bucs are going to be running out. I mean, Antonio Brown's certainly not going to play a full complement of snaps in this thing. And I think they could look clunky, man. And honestly, there's no incentive for them to blow teams out. They just need to get to the playoffs and try to keep as many warm bodies as they possibly can have. So I think I would take the 10 points if I was playing this game. Jacksonville Jaguars, New England Jets, the relegation game. Whoever loses this one has to head to the SEC. Bama gets to come into the NFL. It is right now no matter where you look, one team is favored by 1. You can find the Jags favored by 1. You can find the Jets favored by 1. A total of 41 here. Steven, if you want to play this game, more power to you. I think there's something wrong with you if you want to bet this game. I think there's something seriously, like you have to watch this game if you bet it. Like, I think there's something wrong with someone if they want to bet this game, but I'm sure you have it in your ticket count here.
No, believe it or not, I don't. I finally found one that I don't have in there. I'm learning, Matt. I'm learning. I'm evolving.
There we go.
Matt, do we think that the market actually came in to back the Jaguars, or do we think books just adjusted for Jets COVID news?
Yeah, I think it's just Jets COVID news, which I think is legitimate, right? I mean, like they are down a ton of players right now. I mean, I guess there's always the chance. We've seen games get moved last week. I guess there's always a chance that this thing could get moved right now, but I think it's up to 17 players right now.
And coaches too.
Yeah, for this team. And so we'll have to monitor that a ton. But I mean, we're talking the head coach, we're talking Michael Carter, we're talking, there's a whole bunch of guys here that are on the COVID list. Brad, do you have any angle in this one whatsoever? I mean, I guess there could be a case made, I guess, at this point for the Jags if they end up playing this game. And the Jets,
they changed their play caller, Brad. They have a new play caller now. Back the Jags, right?
I back the Jags. All right, you've both insulted me in the last 2 minutes, and I'm really upset about it. So obviously they lost last week. The money came from them. They went off -5.5 against the Texans and they lost, but they had a better success rate and they had a better first down rate, right? And then the Jets are missing some key players. Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, they're kind of two of their bigger weapons. And then Elijah Vera Tucker, probably their best offensive lineman. And then some key defensive linemen as well. There was, I think, Quinn Williams may miss as well, unrelated to COVID. So this is, to me, below, it is a replacement level team at this point with Zach Wilson back there. And I suspect the Jags will be fighting hard to actually try and prove again this week that they are better off without Urban Meyer. And I think they have some NFL talent out there, especially on the defensive side, and the quarterback is probably a significant upgrade over Zach Wilson. So, yeah, I think, if you can get +1, I personally bet that.
I'm just picturing these sharps firing 5 figures at the Jaguars to cover the spread and then sitting there in a corner on Christmas with their extended family, just completely depressed after they failed to cover yet again.
Look, if I had to play it, I'd play the Jags strictly based off the COVID stuff. I mean, because again, like it's a horrible Jets team as it is anyway. And then now you're going to remove what are at least considered to be the best of the bad players, and how they're getting replaced by worse players. So, I mean, I would play the Jags if I had to play this game for sure. Who knows? Maybe Brad has compelled me to do that. Brad's gonna be sitting over there in London, just watching all these great games on Sunday.
Watch it.
Hey, after all these great games on Sunday, and Brad's going to be huddled around the Jags and the Jets game. He's not even going to know what's happening the rest of the.
Just check the box score when it's finished. You don't have to actually watch this garbage, do you?
Speaking of some garbage here, New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles, 9.5 or 10 points are the Eagles as home favorites in this one. Yes, the Eagles are 10-point home favorites over the Giants. 40.5 is your total. Brad, I could sit here and list all the people that aren't on the field for the Giants, but it would take too long. I mean, look, they're just completely depleted top to bottom with all sorts of anybody that has any talent on this team at all. So that's how we find ourselves with the Eagles as 10-point home favorites. I feel like it's too many points, even with the players that'll be out there for the Giants, because the Eagles haven't really been able to put together a full game all year long. That being said, I can't put a Giants ticket in my account.
Yeah, I'm still laughing. The Giants were saying that they won't announce who's starting out of From and Mike Glennon. A real competitive advantage there. Oh no, how are we going to prepare for both of those morons? I don't know. I had a good chunk on the Eagles against the Giants -3.5 about 3 weeks ago, and I still have no idea how they lost that game. I don't know. I got nothing here. Some Eagles offensive linemen are going on the COVID list as well, so be careful before plowing into them, because that is the strength of their team. I mean, I think the Eagles are good. They were mauling even the football team who had all their starting D-line and stuff, and they were still going up and down the field on them on Tuesday night, whenever that was. So I think the Eagles are good, but yeah, no bet here.
10 points, Steven. What do you think?
Nah, I'm passing this week. I mean, yeah. I did laugh my ass off this week when I went back and checked the numbers from since they fired Jason Garrett, and our suspicions were confirmed that they found one of the 3 people on earth that wasn't an upgrade from Jason Garrett. Since Freddie Kitchens has taken over, this offense is 28th in EPA, 25th in success rate, 29th in drop back EPA and success rate. I mean, I, for one, guys, am shocked that Freddie Kitchens hasn't been able to turn this offense around. But the one thing I would say about this game is that, like Brad said, keep an eye on the COVID stuff with the Eagles.
Sirianni tested. Sirianni is on the COVID list, so head coach is on the COVID list.
Isn't a huge deal because he does share play calling duties with the offensive coordinator. So it's not like they're going in with a cold play caller. The angle I have for the Eagles this week is to just bet them -3 at Washington on the look ahead for next week. We'll talk a little bit more about Washington here in a minute, but I just think that matchup with the Eagles is just a brutal matchup for Washington. And I think you're going to see a situation where the Eagles probably beat the Giants this week. Washington could lose by a couple of possessions to Dallas this week, and that -3 is going to be gone next week. So that's the angle I like for Philly this week.
Detroit Lions on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. Right now, Falcons are 5.5 to 6-point home favorites over the Lions. 42.5 to 43 is your total. Steven, I look at this one, and if I knew Jared Goff was going to be out there, I would be running to the book to take the 6 points with the Lions, because the Falcons are not 6 points better than any team in the NFL. Like they're not. They're a bottom 5 team in the NFL. Of course, this Jared Goff situation is going to be really the litmus test for this whole new COVID protocol thing, because they have gone out of their way the last couple of days to say, Jared Goff feels perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with him other than the fact that the test is coming back and saying positive. Like, they have made a point of it the last 2 days, saying that it does not feel bad at all. He feels perfectly fine.
He said he has a mild cold and he's feeling fine.
Yeah, he said he feels fine. He even said, he's like, it's funny. I feel fine for this, whatever. 2 weeks ago, I had the flu. I was welcomed in the building. Come on in, buddy. Like, no big deal. Like, I have the flu and I can come right in the building. I've got like the sniffles here and I can't come in the building. I don't want to risk it because I don't know what these new protocols are going to do, how easy it is going to be to test out and all that. So I can't get there.
Yeah.
With the situation right now, if it was going to be Goff, man, this might be my favorite bet of the week if I knew that it was going to be Goff, because getting 6 points against this Falcons team that is just absolutely atrocious, I would really, really love this, but until I know more about the Goff situation, I can't do it.
Yeah, I would say just have your finger on the trigger and have some notifications on your phone or whatever, because there are a couple books where this has already moved back to 5.5. I guess maybe taking a chance that he is going to get cleared. So keep an eye out, and maybe you can still get a better number than what it was when it reopened at 4.5 at the beginning of this week before he got COVID. For those that haven't been following the new testing protocols closely, you can still test positive but get cleared to play if what is called the cycle threshold, the CT, is 35 or greater. So the NFL have found through their testing analysis that if you have a 35 or higher in whatever the CT is, it means you're not contagious anymore. But we have no idea how easy it is to get to that point, to actually get cleared in the span of less than a week. We had 4 quarterbacks last week that were describing no symptoms or mild symptoms that still didn't get cleared for the Washington football team and the Cleveland Browns. So we don't know if that's actually an easy bar to clear or not yet. If he does clear, I agree with you guys. I'm running to take Detroit in the points here. Over the last 3 weeks, even with a game in Denver where they were missing like 20 players, the Lions offense is 9th in success rate and 17th in EPA. The Falcons have been worse than that. So I think this offensive line is playing great. DeAndre Swift even returned to practice this week. He was limited. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been a revelation for that passing game. He's getting peppered with targets and doing good work with that. So maybe the angle here is if we're not sure about Goff, maybe the angle is to take Detroit +9 at Seattle on the look ahead next week. I mean, that might be an even better number. I know Seattle is not Atlanta and they're a little better, but I still think more than a possession against the middle of the road at best Seattle team is good value too, with this Detroit team that's playing hard the rest of the year. I don't think we have to worry about Detroit mailing it in at any point. They're playing hard for this staff.
The thing here, Brad, is like, even if DeAndre Swift can't go, they were able to activate Jamal Williams off of the COVID list. And so he'll be able to go for them. And so while you'd rather have Swift, of course, Jamal Williams, perfectly capable back with a lot of experience in the league. I mean, we could sit here and name off all the metrics that the Atlanta offense and the Atlanta defense is in the bottom 5 in the NFL, but it would take up the rest of this podcast. And so, 6 points here. I'm even tempted, even if it's not, I'm tempted, even if it's not Goff, but I can't quite get there yet. But I'm tempted, even if it's not Goff.
Yeah, the Detroit offensive line is the dominant unit in this game. This is by far the best unit of anything. I mean, I do think Jared Goff will be back. These new protocols, or if it's two clear tests within 24 hours, then he should be back. And it was quite early in the week he popped, so I am hopeful. I don't have too much to add beyond what you guys said. That I think the Lions are. I think the Lions are still underrated.
If Goff plays, Brad, would you sprinkle some on a +200 money line, or is that going too far?
Yeah, no. I mean, so they've won 2 of the last 3. The one they lost, as you say, they were missing a load of players from the flu. They had to travel to Denver. They couldn't practice. They split everyone up because of that flu. I think because the offensive line is good, it gives them such a solid floor. I probably prefer the +4.5 or whatever it was, that is what it was before Goff was out, because the Falcons, they either get blown out by a good team or they win by 2 against a bad team. So I do think Detroit +4.5 with Goff in there is, like a 56% bet. I think that's as good a bet on a side as you'll get.
Chicago Bears on the road at the Seattle Seahawks. This one might have a little bit of weather concern. Look like it's going to be about freezing temperatures there with some snow coming down, maybe some water as well. And we know there's always a chance for wind in Seattle as well. So there could be a little bit of weather in this one. The Seahawks are 6.5 point home favorites over the Bears. I played the under 44. This total has now fallen to 40. There's a 43.5 still available. It is a 43 at DraftKings and Rivers, and now 42.5 PointsBet and MGM. So this thing is on the move down, and I think it's correct. These are two of the worst offenses going right now. There's something wrong, seriously, with Russell Wilson. He can say that his finger's fine. His finger is not fine. There's something else going on. I can't believe how poorly he has played over this stretch. And then the Bears just can't figure anything out. Lame duck coaching staff. Everybody knows that they're going to be gone and all that. Brad, I played the total and the under, but 6.5. I mean, are the Seahawks beating anybody by a touchdown? I mean, I understand that the Bears have been so bad, but are the Seahawks beating anybody by a touchdown right now?
No, there's not 6.5 points between these teams. Even if let's give them one point for home field, because I don't know how raucous that crowd is going to be given where the teams are. I mean, also Russ in weather, he's famously small hands like Jared Goff, so he's famously bad in the rain. Which would be another spot in favor of Chicago. They used to rain and snow over there. Football Outsiders makes it 4.9 using their metrics. So I don't think you can go wrong taking 6.5, especially if weather is dampening scoring as well and making those points more valuable.
Steven, I am tempted to play the Bears here, and I can't even believe I've said this, after just how poorly this team has looked, but it's just... there's nothing that has inspired anything out of me in Seattle at all. I mean, if they would have had a pulse, they probably could have beaten the Rams this past week. But the thing is that they don't have a pulse. And so they didn't even threaten to win that game, even though the Rams were basically handing it to them. And so I can't get to where they win this game by a touchdown.
I'm with you. I agree with you guys. It would be Bears or pass for me as well. We talked about it earlier with the Vikings handicap with their game, that they were lucky to beat the Bears, frankly. The Bears went 1 for 5 in the red zone. Otherwise, they probably would have won that game. The Bears defense held the Vikings offense to 3.2 yards per play. So yes, they are capable of slowing down the Seattle offense. I will say that they didn't have Tyler Lockett last week, which has kind of turned into Russ's security blanket here late in the season since he's come back from injury. For whatever reason, they just can't seem to get on the same page or beat coverage to get the ball to Tyler or to get to DK Metcalf. So I agree with you. It's too many points. And I'll also note that the Bears offense was missing their coordinators last week, I think, right? So it was the Matt Nagy show in that game against Minnesota. So maybe a bit of improvement there with Justin Fields, maybe getting Bill Lazor back, I think. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I agree with you guys on this one.
Less rest for Seattle as well off that Tuesday night game.
Oh, great point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to end up with a Bears ticket, and that's gonna feel gross. But off we go. Hey, NFL Week 16. Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be the ultimate. Do you believe in the new testing out policy, or do you not? The Chiefs are down to 7.5 point favorites in this one over the Steelers, coming off of a 10.5 point favorite opener here, because their whole team, and when I say their whole team, that's in jest, but Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce currently occupying the COVID list right now. And so what we've got with that, this total has fallen down to 44 as well. Brad, this is the ultimate do you believe that people can test off list. I mean, if I thought so, could you imagine me getting the Chiefs at 1.5 in a teaser leg against the Steelers team if I thought that they were going to be able to get Kelce and Hill back here? Let's look at it from they're not going to get them back standpoint. So now let's go in as the only thing we know is right now they're on the COVID list. If they do not have Kelce and Hill, is 7.5 too much, or is it just appropriate? Or what do you feel about the number as it sits right now if we assume that those two playmakers are not going to be in there?
So I would say if I had to bet on whether they will be back, I would favour yes, just because of how early they tested and these new protocols. But if they are not, then I think 7.5 is too much, because what's left after Kelsey and Hill? It's Hardman, it's what's his name, Robinson, Demarcus Robinson. It is a bunch of part-time players, really. Yeah, Byron Pringle. Like there's no one there that scares you, especially a good Pittsburgh defense. We saw last week, once Joe Hayden's back, he kind of firms up the secondary, and they've still got that pass rush up front. So it would be the plus 7.5 for me, or it would be the under. If it stays at 44.5 with them out, actually I like the under regardless, basically, whether they're in or out. And if they're in, it goes back up to 47 or so. I like the under because I do think the Pittsburgh defense is good, and I do still, we saw in week 1 actually, the Steelers, they laid out the blueprint to play the Bills, where they rushed 4 and they dropped 7 the entire time. And I think they'll probably bring out a similar game plan here against the Chiefs and Mahomes. And I don't think they've fixed those problems that they had. They played teams that couldn't play cover 2 against them. So I suspect the Steelers just drag this game into the mud, and a bit like they did against the Titans, and try and pip a 1-point win or something.
Stephen, the Steelers offense, though, absolutely putrid. 12 carries for 18 yards last week for Najee Harris. This is like the 4th year in a row that they cannot get any sort of run game going at all. I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic.
But I thought drafting a running back in the first round would fix their run game.
Yeah, I know, right? It's shocking that didn't happen. I know that you're probably looking at this the same way I am, right? Like, you want to pull the trigger on a teaser leg for the Chiefs so bad, but you just can't quite get yourself to get there and do it. What are you going to end up doing eventually with this game?
Yeah, it's the COVID situation for sure. And I would just caution you, if you want to bet this going into the weekend on Thursday or Friday with supreme confidence that these guys are going to clear with the new testing protocols. I think it's definitely a chance. We've seen that already. There's been a handful of players from last week with the games getting pushed back and more time that did clear. Odell Beckham, Von Miller, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also a handful of players that were describing little to no symptoms that didn't clear. So I'm not sure we have a clear picture at this point as to whether that new bar that they've set for clearing despite testing positive is actually a low bar or a high bar or a medium bar. I'm not sure we have a clear picture on that yet.
All the bars.
Yes.
High bars, medium bars, low bars, left bars, right bars, crooked bars. All the bars.
Which I can't clear any bar because I have a 3-inch vertical. So, but with these Chiefs, man, I mean, here's what I would say. Teasing them down to -1.5, even if they don't have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and this COVID news doesn't go my way, I still think they beat the Steelers by 2 or more, even without those guys. I mean, the Steelers are a train wreck, and even the Steelers' offensive line can't block anybody. They're bottom 5 in block win rates, and the Chiefs are much improved on defense if they have at least the majority of their players in there on defense. So I think it's kind of a low risk teaser leg, even with the COVID situations. And I don't know, maybe if you want to just take the second leg equation out of it, maybe it's a money line situation where, you're just taking the Chiefs straight up for, instead of your normal 1 unit, you're taking 2 units on the Chiefs to just win the game on the money line. So I'm exploring all of those options. I haven't decided what I want to do yet, but I say all that to say, even if the COVID news doesn't go their way, I still like the Chiefs to win the game because that's how low I think of the Steelers at this point.
Denver Broncos on the road at the Las Vegas Raiders. You can find either one of these teams favored right now, so be sure and shop around. Denver by 1 or the Raiders by 1. A total of 41.5. Super, super incredibly low for this one. Steven, look, it's we know Teddy Bridgewater's not going to be out there. It's going to be Drew Lock. And from the Raiders side of things, we still can't doesn't look like we can get Darren Waller back out on the field for them either. And we have seen what this offense looks like without Darren Waller. It's crazy to think that one guy, and the guy being a tight end at that, has so much value to this team being able to do anything offensively at all. But man, he didn't practice again on Wednesday. That doesn't bode well because he's got multiple injuries. He's got a knee injury and a back injury, so it doesn't look like he's going to be out there. They also put Jonathan Abram on IR. Might have been a good thing. Abram not really living up to his billing. And then Josh Jacobs missed the Wednesday with an illness as well. Just so much grossness in this game. And then it's impossible for me to back a Drew Lock led team as well. So I don't know. I think this one's going to be a complete pass for me.
Yeah, the market seems to be undecided on this. If I'm not mistaken, it was Broncos -1 on the look ahead. And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but we actually saw Raiders as a short favorite here middle of the week. And now we're back to a couple spots where the Broncos are -1 again. So I don't think anybody knows what to make of Drew Lock at this point. So to me, this entire game is just a gamble, no matter which way you handicap it. I don't think you can feel confident about the metrics for either of these situations. You hit it on the head. This offense for the Raiders has looked completely different when Darren Waller's not on the field. Their metrics go much higher. And maybe part of that was Henry Ruggs too. So you can make an argument for either of these sides, and I'd probably say, yeah, good argument. I don't know how you know for sure, how you feel confident about either side. So it's a pass for me.
Brad, I guess the only thing you could say here is that the range of outcomes with Drew Lock at quarterback is like, as wide as humanly possible, right? Like if it's bad Drew Lock and he throws 3 horrible picks, like would it shock you in the least bit if the Raiders won this thing by 2+ touchdowns? It would not. If Drew Lock is somehow dialed in, using that arm talent of his and the receivers that he's got and the weapons at his disposal, if the Broncos won by 2 touchdowns, I don't think anybody would be really shocked by that. So with that, when I have such a wide range of outcomes, for me, it typically leads me to a pass. What do you think about this one?
I would say I will be a lot more surprised if we get good Drew Lock than bad Drew Lock. Like everything he's done since he's come to the league suggests he is, below replacement level. Trying to bring them back last week against the Bengals. He's sailing wide open passes. He literally handed the ball to a Bengals defender on like a QB keeper or something. It shows you kind of where he's at mentally, where he's in the press this week going, I'm going to be good this week. I'm going to be a lot better than I have been because I'm getting a full week of practice. So the quarterback discrepancy is significant. Derek Carr is probably top 14 still. He's a decent quarterback, and I think Drew Lock is probably worse than 32. So on that alone, I would have to have the Raiders if forced to pick. But they're both two teams you don't really want any part of.
Washington football team on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys currently 10 to 10.5 point home favorites here, a total of 47 to 47.5. The Cowboys continue to kind of just putt along here, right? I mean, it's like they're not necessarily leaking oil because the defense is playing so incredibly well, but the offense is certainly leaving a ton to be desired here. Washington football team they've just been completely decimated by injuries, by COVID, by everything. I mean, this team it's going to be a shell of the team that's going to be out there. Brad, I guess my question to you here is, you look at this Cowboys team, and I understand defense has played well. Defense, who would have known that the defense would be what we would be relying on whenever we were talking about a Cowboys handicap? Are you confident at all that this Cowboys offense figures something out and gets things going? Like I'm almost of the mindset that Dak is just not right. That there's something going on there that calf really must have never really healed properly or something. I don't like to speculate into stuff like this, but I mean, there's too much talent on that team. There's too much talent on the offensive side of the ball for it to look this bad.
Yeah, it could be that. It could be Blake Jarwin. That there was a lot of talk internally about how important he is for the run game, and if you're going at 4.8 yards a carry instead of 4.2, it does change how defenses defend you as well. So it could be a little bit of that. I would say that I think there will be better. I mean, definitely next week, because there's also a lot of just silly mistakes. Like CeeDee Lamb dropped a long touchdown last week. Yeah. So I think they will be better going forward. I will say we were quite early on this Cowboys defense. I think we've given out under in their last 2 games. So just on those two quickly, they went under the last time they played the football team on a perfect day in Washington. they went under despite 2 defensive touchdowns. Last week against the Giants, they went under by about 20 points. I don't know if the Giants scored an offensive touchdown there. And yet the total is basically half a point lower than it was when they first played the football team here. Obviously, it's indoors, but it's also the second meeting, which is naturally lower scoring anyway. So I've gone under again. I still think this Cowboys defense is one of the best in the NFL, as we've spoken about a lot here. The pass rush is ridiculous. Is unparalleled in the NFL, in my view. And they're ball hawking behind it. So yeah, as you said, the offense is still a bit shaky. So, but yeah, I can't really explain why the totals hasn't been adjusted despite what the Cowboys have been putting out there for the last month now.
Stephen, we did get Taylor Heineke clear protocol this morning for Washington, so he will at least be out there. It won't be Garrett Gilbert for this Washington team. They're going to hope to get a lot more players back, but we shall see as the next few days go by. Look. You and I bought in on Super Bowl futures with this Cowboys team. I'm not like throwing those away or anything. I mean, this defense is so incredibly good that it's going to keep them in pretty much every game. I am fairly worried about the offense, though. I mean, it is not a small sample size now of this offense being clunky, and unless they figure something out, they're going to get clipped at some point. I just don't think it'll be this week against Washington.
I agree with you. A couple things. You mentioned the drops, so that's not Dak's fault, but it's an issue with the offense. The Ezekiel Elliott has been inefficient, and he has the contract. He's a face of the franchise, so they're going to keep running him. But it is abundantly clear that a healthy Tony Pollard is much more effective, not only in the run game, but the pass game as well. So it's almost like the best thing that could happen here is that, and I'm not saying I want him to get injured, but if he were to get injured, I think that would improve the offense overall. On top of that, I just think that it's a brutal spot for Washington. I mean, Heineke cleared 2 hours before we recorded this podcast. The line hasn't moved. So the market doesn't give a damn that they got their starting quarterback back. So as we record this, it's still sitting at that 10.5. Maybe one spot here was at 10, but I think that one was a 10 before we came on. So no reaction to getting their starting quarterback to come back for this game. And I'm just waiting for the Cowboys to kind of figure it out, because I think Tyron Smith is still out. Is that right? So their tackle, it's the offense is back to being a work in progress. So I love Brad's angle of an under here. And I'm not betting on the Cowboys right now or anytime soon to blow anybody out. As always, everything we do is absolutely free. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to us on the audio part of thing, go ahead and subscribe, rate and review. Tell everybody how sexy Brad's accent is. Just let everybody try help them find this podcast along the way. As Stephen mentioned earlier, join the Discord. Go to the Lines homepage, upper right-hand corner, click in there. We have some pretty good discussions in there, especially on Sunday mornings. So be sure and hop in and talk some NFL with us over there. And we'll be talking every one of the sports. We're talking golf. We'll be talking college basketball, all of that over in the Discord as well. If you want to follow Stephen at Stephen Andress 1, you want to follow Brad at Brad Allen NFL, you want to follow me at Matt Brown M2. Good luck on all your bets here in NFL Week 16.